How are you guys doing? Today is Friday, March 25th, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an elite individual profile on Hyun-jin Ryu. The elite Korean starting pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays turns 35 today, and my intention with this episode is, of course, to provide focus and look at what has made Hyun-jin Ryu one of the world's elite premier starting pitchers to dominate an entire league, an entire ocean away, come to the MLB and really kind of dominate is really kind of an incredible feat. And I'm also going to take a step back and even look at that feat and examine how he's been able to impact professional baseball on a global scale, on a macro level. And additionally with that, I'm going to digress into Hyun-jin Ryu's career as I'm going to get into the American aspects of it, as of course I really could get into what he was able to do in the KBO, as the KBO is the Korean Baseball League, as he would go on to make his debut in 2006 as a teenager for the Hanwha Eagles. In the KBO, I would go through what he's been able to do in his span, but taking a look at what he's done in his first 7 years, as he would leave for the MLB right before his age 26 season. Up before then, he would go on to pitch for the Korean Triple Crown in 2006. He was a 7-time KBO All-Star from 2006 to 2012. From the season that he got there until the season he left, he was an All-Star all 7 years. His rookie season, while pitching the Triple Crown, he would go on to win the KBO MVP and the Rookie of the Year in 2006. He was given the Gold Glove Award in 2006 as rookie year, as well as 2010. He would lead the KBO in strikeouts 5 of the 7 years that he played, including in 06, in 07, 2009, 2010, and he was the strikeout champ in 2012. He was even the ERA champ in 2006, which of course was a part of the Triple Crown, and he was the ERA champ in 2010, where he won his second Golden Glove. But of course, after being one of the greatest pitchers in the history of the Korean Baseball League, if not the greatest, he would go on to pack his bags and move to Los Angeles to start his MLB career with the Los Angeles Dodgers. He would go on to make his debut in his age 26 season in 2013. In 2013, he will go on to start all 30 of the games he played for a Los Angeles Dodgers team that finished with a 92-70 record. This would be the beginning of an 8-season stretch in which the Los Angeles Dodgers would win the National League West after missing the playoffs for 3 straight seasons. This would also be the season where Clayton Kershaw won his second Cy Young in a 3-season stretch. In Hyun-jin Ryu's first MLB season, he would go on to finish with a 14-8 record, finishing with a winning record alongside a 3.0 ERA. He would pitch 192 innings as he had 2 complete games and even a shutout. In the 192 innings, he allowed 182 hits, which is 10 less hits than innings pitched. He would strike out 154 batters, which is 38 less strikeouts than innings pitched on the year. By the end of the year, he would go on to finish 4th in the National League Rookie of the Year voting, despite putting together a really solid season for a starter in any season. The National League Rookie of the Year this year would end up being Jose Fernandez, rest in peace. Yasiel Puig would also be, and Shelby Miller would finish ahead of him in Rookie of the Year voting. Once the season would end, the Los Angeles Dodgers would go on to beat the Braves by 4 in the National League Division Series before losing in the Championship Series to the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals would go on to the World Series to lose to the Boston Red Sox this season, so that would be how that first season ended. Hyun-jin Ryu's second season with the Dodgers would be his age 27 season in 2014. In that season, he would start all 26 of the games he played in a season where the Los Angeles Dodgers would finish with a 94-68 record. They would win 2 more games in the previous season, as Clayton Kershaw would win his 3rd Cy Young in a 4-season stretch, and he would go on to win his lone MVP. Within that season, Hyun-jin Ryu would finish with a 14-7 record, being another Dodger pitcher with a winning record. He did this alongside having a 3.38 ERA. In the 152 innings he pitched, he would go on to pitch he would allow 152 hits, which is exactly as many innings as he pitched. He would strike out 139 batters, which is 13 less strikeouts than innings pitched. However, he would go on to help the Dodgers make the playoffs this year. Once they made the playoffs, they would end up losing in 4 to the St. Louis Cardinals this year, as the San Francisco Giants, their division rivals, would be the team that won the World Series this year. And then taking a look at how his third season in the league would fare, Hyun-jin Ryu's 2015 season would end up being postponed, as he would be placed on the disabled list because he would be dealing with shoulder soreness, and his shoulder pain would end up getting a lot worse. He would end up getting surgery to repair his shoulder labrum. He would miss the entire 2015 and almost the entire 2016 season. In that missed 2015 season, the Los Angeles Dodgers would win the NL West for the third season in a row and lose in the first round to the Mets. And in the 2016 season, where Corey Seager would win the Rookie of the Year and Dave Roberts won the Manager of the Year, the Dodgers would win the NL West for the fourth year in a row, beating the Nationals by 5 and then losing to the eventual champion Chicago Cubs in the National League Championship Series. Hyun-jin Ryu would go on to make his return and play his third full season with the LA Dodgers in his age 30 season, coming off of that shoulder injury. He would start 24 of the 25 games he played in a season where the LA Dodgers would finish with a 104-58 record. This would be the first time that the Dodgers had won 100 games in a season since 1974. It would be the first time they'd won so many games since the 1950s, so it was a very big year for them. This was the year where Cody Bellinger won the Rookie of the Year. In this season, Hyun-jin Ryu would finish with a 5-9 record. This would be the only season as a starting pitcher, and that he's pitched more than 4 innings, that he would go on to finish with a losing record in a full season. He finished with a 3.77 ERA, which would be his highest in a full season, at least up until that point. In the 126 innings that he pitched, he would allow 128 hits, which is 2 more hits than innings pitched. He would even go on to finish with a save that year. He would go on to strike out 116 batters, as that's 10 less strikeouts than innings pitched on the year. Once the season came to an end, the Los Angeles Dodgers would end up sweeping the Diamondbacks in the first round. They would go on to beat the Cubs in 5 in the National League Championship Series. And once they made it to the World Series, they would end up losing in 7 to the Houston Astros. And it would later be found out that the Astros cheated, but the Astros would still go on to keep the title, as Hyun-jin Ryu was actually not called upon to pitch in this series because he was still coming back from his injury. However, in his 4th full season as a starter, he will go on to start all 15 of the games he played for a Los Angeles Dodgers team that finished with a 92-71 record. They will go on to win the NL West for the 6th year in a row, as they would see themselves go all the way back to the World Series again, particularly within this 2018 season. In his age 31 season, Ryu would go on to finish with a 7-3 record, finishing with a 1.97 ERA. First time his ERA was below 3 or even 2 in the MLB. In the 82 innings that was pitched, he would go out and pitch 82 innings. He would, of course, be limited because of a groin injury. He would go on to allow 68 hits in those 82 innings, which is 14 less hits than innings pitched. He would strike out 89 batters, which is 7 more strikeouts than innings pitched. This would be the very first season in his career that he would have less hits than innings pitched and less innings pitched than strikeouts. His ERA plus was at 1.98, which would be the highest it would be in his career, which would be the highest in comparison to the average pitcher in baseball. He would go on to help the Los Angeles Dodgers make it into the playoffs with this 7-3 record. And once the Dodgers made it into the playoffs, they would end up beating the Braves in 4. They would end up beating the Brewers in 7 in the National League Championship Series. And once they made it to the World Series for the 2nd year in a row, they would end up losing to the Boston Red Sox this year, as this would be a year that he would go on to pitch in the playoffs. Following this, it looks as though he would go on to return for the Los Angeles Dodgers after signing a 1-year deal to remain with the club. In his last season with in his last full season with the Los Angeles Dodgers in his age 32 season in 2019, his fifth full season playing with the team. He would go on to start all 29 of the games he played in a season where the LA Dodgers finished with a 106-56 record. Their 106 wins would be the most wins that the Dodgers would go on to win as a franchise in its history. They would go on to see Cody Bellinger win the MVP. In this season, Hyun-jin Ryu will go on to make the MLB All-Star game for the only time that he's ever made it in his career. In the 29 games he started, he finished with a 14-5 record, helping the Dodgers finish with a historic regular season amount of wins. He would go on to finish with a National League best 2.32 ERA. This would be the second season in a row he finished with an ERA below 3, and it would be the only season in his career he finished with the National League best in ERA and an ERA plus, which compares him to the average pitcher in the National League. He also led the National League in walks per 9 innings, as he only averaged 1.2 walks per 9 innings, which is an incredible rate. He would go on to pitch a complete game, the third of his career. He even threw his second shutout of his career in 2019, as he would make the All-Star team in that season, his last year in Los Angeles. In the 182 innings he pitched, he allowed 160 hits. That would, of course, be 12 less hits than innings pitched, making it the second year in a row and the third time in his first 5 years that he would have less hits than innings pitched. He would also strike out 163 batters in that span, which is 19 less strikeouts than innings pitched. At the conclusion of the year, he will go on to finish as the runner-up in the American League Cy Young race, as the American League Cy Young was given to Justin Verlander within the National League Cy Young was given to Jacob deGrom of the New York Mets, as Hyun-jin Ryu was very close. He was even getting MVP votes this year as well. Once the Dodgers season came to an end, they would actually lose in the very first round to the Washington Nationals, who ended up winning the World Series anyway. But following that, he would go on to sign a deal with the Toronto Blue Jays. He signed a 4-year deal in 2019. His very first season with the Toronto Blue Jays would be his age 33 season in 2020. This would be the season that was shortened due to COVID. The 162-game season was shortened to 60 games. And as a result, the playoffs were expanded, as 8 teams in the American League and National League were able to compete. In 2020, in his age 33 season, his first season outside of Los Angeles in Canada, he would go on to start 12 games for a Toronto Blue Jays team that finished with a 32-28 record. They would finish with the third best record in the AL East, as they qualified for the playoffs with the lowest possible seed that they could have made the playoffs with. In that season, Hyun-jin Ryu would finish with a 5-2 record, as he had a 2.69 ERA. This would be the third season in a row he had an ERA below 3, but they would not name All-Stars this year. In the 67 innings he pitched, he allowed 60 hits and he struck out 72 batters. This would be the second season in his career and the second time in a 3-year stretch that he would have less hits than innings pitched, and he had more strikeouts than innings pitched as well. His ERA plus was set at about 164, and he would go on to finish third in the American League Cy Young race. This would be the second year in a row he finished in the top 3 in voting. The winner would be Shane Bieber, who would go on to win who would earn the American League Triple Crown in the pitching side. Hyun-jin Ryu would finish 13th in American League MVP voting. But once the season came to an end, the Blue Jays would end up getting beat in the American League wildcard round by the Rays to end their 3-year playoff drought. Following that season, this would lead to the most recent season that he played with the Blue Jays in his age 34 season. He started all 31 of the games he played. Last year was the most games that he ever started in an MLB season. He did all this for a Toronto Blue Jays team that finished with a 91-71 record. Despite winning 91 games, they had the 4th best record in their division, and as a result, they did not make the playoffs. This was a season in which Robbie Ray won the Cy Young Award as well. In Hyun-jin Ryu's second season with the Toronto Blue Jays and his seventh full season as a starting pitcher, in the 31 games he pitched, he would finish with a 14-10 record, finishing with a 4.37 ERA. His 4.37 ERA is the highest ERA that he's ever put together in a full season in the MLB, and I would imagine in Korea too. He would go on to pitch 169 innings, as he would go on to allow 170 hits. That's one more hit than innings pitched. He would go on to strike out 143 batters in the 169 innings that he pitched. That would be 26 less strikeouts than innings. His ERA plus would sit at about average, as his 4.37 ERA would be the average ERA of the American League. And in 2021, the Blue Jays would go on to, like I said, miss the playoffs, but this would lead us to where we are right now, as Hyun-jin Ryu is about to enter his age 35 season in the third year of his 4-year deal with the Toronto Blue Jays. And even just looking at where he is right now, he is a historic all-time great when it comes to pitchers, especially when it comes to the legacy of Korean pitchers in baseball worldwide. He's made it to the MLB, and he's put together in solid seasons. I think this last year he might have hit a bump, or he very well could be at the very end of his rope. I do think that coming into the season, Hyun-jin Ryu is still one of the elite starting pitchers in baseball, and hopefully I get to see what he does over this next year. And by this time next year, hopefully Hyun-jin Ryu will still have another profile, so I'll have more to talk about when it comes to Hyun-jin Ryu. And of course, in addition to that, I want to thank everyone for listening to all 16 minutes of this piece. I do hope all is well. If you end up watching Hyun-jin Ryu, he wears number 99 for the Toronto Blue Jays. And once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are done, I will come back tomorrow on Saturday, March 26th, for another episode of The Elite. So until then, I want to thank everyone for listening. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with a lot more tomorrow. Peace out, and thanks for listening. I'm James Sims, and this is The Elite.